In previous module, we talked about free energy. Let's talk about free energy a little further. Free energy, we said, is derived from the second law of thermodynamics, which stated that total energy of the system equals unusable energy plus the usable energy. H equals G plus Ts. We further said that since we are interested in the usable energy, the energy that can be used to do useful work, so we rearranged this equation, which became G equals H minus Ts. Since we cannot measure these terms in absolute value, however, we can measure the change in the value of these terms, G, H, and S. We can change this equation in the form delta G equals delta H minus T delta S. Here, the delta G is basically, in the case of a reaction, delta G represents the change in usable energy of products minus the usable energy of the reactants. Delta H of a reaction basically represents the energy, the total energy of the system of the products minus the reactants. Similarly, delta S represents the energy, unusable energy of the products minus the unusable energy of the reactants. So if we look at this equation carefully, we will come to some conclusions that if the value of delta G is negative, it basically means that the system, when this reaction occurs, energy will be released from the system. If delta G is a positive number, then we have to add that much amount of energy to the system in order for the process or the chemical reaction to continue. This equation gives us some very useful information also, that if in order for delta G to be a negative number, delta H has to be a small number. Delta H would be small if the energy, total energy of the products is greater than is less than the total energy of the reactants. So reactants were at a much higher energy level than the products. In that case, the delta H will be a small number. As far as the delta S is concerned, we have said this is entropy, a measure of unusable energy, which we can understand the unusable energy by disorder, going from order to disorder. So in all reactions where the products are more disordered than the reactants, the delta S will be a positive number. So we are going from order to chaos. All processes in which the total energy of the system goes from a higher value to lower value will result in a negative delta G. Those are the favorable processes. In all processes which go from order to disorder, they will also contribute to a negative delta G. This means that all systems tend to go from higher energy state to lower energy state. All systems tend to go from order to disorder. Let's look at an example of this equation. Let's say, for example, we have methane. Our system is made up of methane and oxygen. These two molecules are present in our system. The total energy, these are all arbitrary numbers. The total energy of the system is 500. Out of this 500, 400 units is the usable energy, or G, free energy. 100 units is unusable energy, S, or entropy, disorder. So if after this reaction methane is burned, combustion occurs, we have, as products, we have carbon dioxide and water are produced. Now let's look at the total energy of the system. Total energy of the system has gone down 300 units. From 500 it has gone down to 200. Out of this, how do we come up with 200 number? G, the usable energy of the system, has gone down from 400 to 100. Since the total number of molecules is the same, we started with 3 molecules and we ended up with 3 molecules, we have not produced disorder. So total energy of the system is 200. Where did the 300 go? That is the amount of energy that was released. The carbon hydrogen bonds, as I have mentioned earlier, are high energy bonds. So our system is going from a higher energy state to a lower energy state. So when that happens, energy is released. Since our temperature is constant, this amount of energy is released, and from methane and oxygen we have produced carbon dioxide and water. So when we rearrange this equation, we come up with after the rearrangement, we see that usable energy of the system was 400 and the usable energy of our products is 100. So if we convert this, we go back to our original equation, delta G, we look at the delta G. Delta G equals G of products, free energy of the products, minus the free energy of the reactants. And delta G, the change in delta G is minus 300. That is the amount of energy that was released from the system. We get this energy from? This energy was part of the total energy of the system. So total energy of the system has also gone down 300 units, and that energy was taken from the free energy part of this system. Hydrophobicity. We can also explain hydrophobicity using this equation. How do we do that? I had mentioned in one of my previous modules that I will explain what hydrophobicity is, but in order to understand hydrophobicity, we have to understand free energy. In water molecules, as I have mentioned earlier, they're polar molecules. Oxygen has partial negative charge, hydrogen has partial positive charge. So opposite charges, when they come together, the total energy of the system goes down. The positively charged, partially positively charged hydrogen atoms are, when they are close to oxygen atoms, they form a weak bond which is called hydrogen bond. This hydrogen bond, formation of hydrogen bond, reduces the total energy of the system. And that is why it is favorable for water molecules to stay in close contact with each other. When we add a hydrophobic substance in water, the water molecules will be restricted in forming this hydrogen bond with each other. We can maximize this. We can have maximum number of hydrogen bonds if we restrict this hydrophobic molecule with as small of a surface area as possible. We have already seen, in order to have smallest possible surface area to volume ratio, you need to condense all the material, all the hydrophobic material together. So this hydrogen bonding of water is exerting force, a pressure on the hydrophobic molecules to stay together. This is basically the scientific basis of hydrophobic bond. So we have seen that we can use the free energy to explain many things. In fact, we can explain most of the things using this equation. The main point I would like to reiterate that delta G, free energy, is change in free energy is negative when energy in a process is released. Delta G is positive when we have to add energy into the system for a reaction to occur. In living systems, magnitude and sign of delta G can depend significantly on entropy, delta S. And so when we go from order to disorder, those processes are more preferred.